Well, hello and welcome to the Happy Retirement Show with Victor Gray and Colin Hurst. Thank you for tuning in today. Victor?
Yes, Colin.
We've had holidays. We've had a lot of exciting things going on. But one of the things that we talked about before our hiatus here for the holidays was how do you plan for potentially needing help of some sort as life progresses? And we got a lot of feedback and other questions and things like that from folks, so we wanted to spend some more time answering and addressing some of those things on this week's Happy Retirement Show. Victor, we've met with a lot of folks recently.
Yes.
Had a lot of good conversations about healthcare down the road, living a long and vital life. Mm-hmm. What do you think are some of the common themes that you've seen on the top of folks' minds lately?
Well, I think threefold. Number one, they want to make sure that they've got enough money to live their current lifestyle. And the way it's put to us, I don't want to run out of money. And, you know, there's a saying in this industry, you want to make sure you don't have more life than you do money. So, you know, you don't want to run out of life either, but you sure don't want to run out of money. So, you know, that's a concern. Then the next concern is, well, if I live to a ripe old age and, you know, I'm still here at, you know, age 85, 90, whatever it is, and really need some help, can I afford that? And how would that work? And, of course, it's different if you're a husband and a wife together or you're just, you know, a solo person. And then the third aspect is the situation of how important is it to leave an inheritance? And, you know, living a long time, you know, it's kind of interesting because these people who live a long time, sometimes their kids are 65, 70 before they pass away. So, you know, that's not what we normally think of, but certainly that does happen. And they want to make sure, or that some people just don't care.
Right.
Yeah. You know, if any money's left, fine. If not, you know, okay. And then some people, it's very important to them. So the plan has to be tied to each individual person and what their goals and desires are.
You know, Victor, I think you mentioned something about adult children being older. Harvard University recently, and I don't know the exact year, but I know they recently, in the past couple of years, did a study that they put out, and they concluded at the pace of technology and medicine and health and everything like that, they believe that today, living today, walking the earth today, will be the first person that ever lives to 150 years old.
Yeah, I saw that same study, and I thought, well, I don't care, you know, because they're taking into consideration they're maybe just being born.
Right, yeah, exactly.
But I think they better get a job and start saving some money.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll have to make sure that Social Security's solvent for them. They'll be on it for a while.
Yeah, they won't be getting Social Security until approximately, 2190 or something.
Right, exactly. But longevity is a big deal, and I think when we think about potentially higher taxes down the road, we think about needing enough income. All of that factors around my health and my longevity, that we don't want to have a great working life, have a beautiful time, a wonderful family, have a great start to retirement, but then have problems down the road with our income, with our health, especially if we might need some type of care that we don't want or we don't expect, but we might have that need that can really derail everything else that's going on.
Particularly if it's a married couple. If it's a married couple and one of them becomes ill just through aging and can't really navigate at home anymore, or, you know, they have a stroke or some sort of impairment, the one at home still has to live.
Right.
They still have to maintain that normal lifestyle as far as finances are concerned, because they're maybe staying in the house. They've got the taxes, the insurance, the utilities. They're driving a car. They're, living a life while there's this extra money going out that most people end up having to take it out of their retirement accounts. And that may not be problematic if you're 80 years old, 85 years old and single and had no heirs.
Right. Right.
Where's the money going to go anyway? But if you have a situation where you're wanting to leave an inheritance, or so much more is having a person still at home that needs to maintain a lifestyle. We talk about longevity, we talk about the finances, but there's one thing out there that is more important than all of those things, and that's your dignity. And people want to have good care for the rest of their lives. They don't want to be a burden on family. They want to keep their dignity intact and just, live happily ever after, even though the circumstances may change. And generally what allows that to happen is a good plan and having resources to pay for it.
Absolutely, because if we think about things we want to do in life, places we want to go, people we want to spend time with, everything that we want to do costs money, and everything we don't want to have to deal with, we don't want to have to think about. We want people needing to take care of us for our health. We want people doing that's not the people that we raised.
Right.
Right. We want to make sure that we have loving relationships with our spouse, our children, our grandchildren, not the caregiver, care receiver type dynamic, because Alicia, our last guest, I think said it great, that needing care doesn't bring families together. It really does bring families apart.
Right. Especially if, and we've had this happen several times over the years. People have 2 or 3 kids, and one of them becomes the primary either caretaker or looking after, and the other 2 are the judges.
Right.
The other 3, they're in the judging business of how I'm doing it and what I'm doing. So it can become very, let's say, uncomfortable for the family dynamic when they're in that situation. I had a gentleman, it's been a long-time client. I met with him just yesterday, and he's concerned about how his money and his wife's money will be divided up after they're both gone, because they have one child they're afraid of. Not physically, but they're afraid that he will overburden the sibling and try to take control, and somehow or another he's going to win in the inheritance. And it was brought up about, if we need long-term care or we need, help at home, there may not be any money left. And he said, I'll take care of you. Don't worry about it. You'll never have to hire anybody. He works a full-time job. He's quite a bit younger. And so, they'll probably pass away. He'll still be working. So how in the world is he going to care for somebody? Because if you need care, you may need access to that care 168 hours per week.
Right.
And nobody with a marriage and a family and a job is certainly going to be able to provide that. So what happens is you end up with a lack of care.
And I think having a plan, because we're talking about things that nobody, number one, thinks will ever happen to them.
Right.
And number 2, wants to ever happen to them.
Correct.
But Victor,
but are afraid it will happen to them.
Well, that's the exact key. What can people do at 55, 60, 65 that 85, 90-year-old them will thank themselves that they did a few decades before?
Well, when you asked that, it reminded me of something that I heard said, that the only person who can take care of the older person you'll someday be is the younger person you are today. So, it's a matter of really having a plan. What is my plan, or what is our plan if I or if we need care, whether it be home health care, assisted living, true skilled nursing care. How are we going to manage? How are we going to pay for it? What's it going to cost? And what can I do to make sure that I will receive the care I need, keep my dignity, and be able to be okay regardless of the situation?
I think, Victor, it's interesting. A lot of people that I talk with think that there's games to play because there are people hear stories about a family member's experience, and people think there's these games, there's these tricks, there's these things to do to game the system if a person needed to pay for care. People think, oh, well, I'll just gift money away. Or I'll go on Medicaid, or Medicare will take care of me. And I think you have a great example that I've learned to use over the years, and I think paying for care is simply thinking about it like checking into a hotel. That if you're going to stay at a hotel for 30 days and order breakfast, lunch, and dinner from the restaurant every day.
Have maid service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go to the spa, get worked on, whatever it may be. When you check out, there's a bill that has to be paid, and the hotel doesn't really care how you pay for it.
No.
But you receive services, and they deserve to be paid.
Yeah. I hear people say, well, I don't want to lose everything to a nursing home. Well, you don't have to. Don't go.
Right.
Yeah. And the whole idea is to not go to a nursing home. And the number one way, if you are not 100% functional, is to have somebody come in the home. But depending on how much care you need, that can be hundreds, if not thousands of dollars per week. And what I find is, Colin, that if people have a plan, they will use the plan rather than go with lack of care.
So the decision you've seen, and you've helped people do this for decades at this point, you're very seasoned in this, that people will either go with lack of care,
right,
or if they have a plan, they'll use the plan.
Correct. Now, they may choose lack of care while they've got money to pay for care, but they don't want to spend the money. The reason they have the money is they didn't buy a Lamborghini. They didn't have 2 or 3 houses, one on a lake and one in, the warm climate or whatever. They were savers, and they don't want to become spenders just to provide care for themselves. But yet, if they had a plan that's put together that, if I need care, here's how we're going to fund that, then they will get adequate care that they need so that they can live the best life possible.
When we think about having money and not wanting to spend it on care, but if we have a plan for care, being willing to use those resources, what are some things that you've seen, maybe 2 or 3 things in the time that we have left today, a couple factors of things that people need to think about or pieces that need to be in place to have a plan a person's actually willing to use?
Well, the number one thing is you have to have enough money to live your retirement lifestyle, and it lasts as long as you do. That's number one. Now, with those needs met, what's the next step? What if I need care? What if we need care? How is that going to work? But yet, you don't want to, and it's why we don't do traditional long-term care insurance, is because it can be costly, expensive, etc. So we stay away from it. But you need to have factored into your plan, after you have enough money to live, well, this money is designated if I need care. And we try to do it in a way that if you need care, that money gets expanded so that it's more than you even could possibly grow it to in a lifetime. And if it's not used, it's left to a spouse or your heirs or whatever. Or if at 90 you say, I'm not going to need care, I want one last big hurrah, well, just take the money out of the plan and go on a world cruise or whatever it is you want to do. It's flexibility after your lifetime needs are met.
And I think, Victor, you're so spot on. Having that flexibility, whether we need care, that we don't want to have, but at least we have the flexibility that there's a comfortable chunk of money there set aside for that purpose.
Designated funds.
And that's what it's there for.
Yeah, but if you don't need them, it's not like if you don't use it, you lose it.
Right, not use it or lose it.
Yeah, it starts with a plan. It starts with, and this is one of the reasons we help a lot of people in this area, is number one, we know how to.
Right.
We know how to do that plan. We know how to put it together. We know how to take care of financial things for the rest of a person's life, but yet also have put together what's going to happen if.
Take care of the what ifs. And if you feel like your plan, whether it's as with care as we're talking about today, or with income, with taxes, if you feel like your plan hasn't had all the what ifs taken care of, if you feel like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, or even 5 different areas you're thinking, I don't know what I would do for this or what I would do for that, connect with us today. Go to ghwealthadvisors.com. You can click the link right now in the description. Go to ghwealthadvisors.com. We'd be happy to chat with you for no cost and no obligation whatsoever. We appreciate you joining us here on the Happy Retirement Show. Make sure if you haven't already to like this video, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and hit the bell to stay notified. I'm Colin Hurst.
I'm Victor Gray.
And we hope you have a happy retirement.
Happy retirement.
Start building a more secure future for you and your family. Take the first step toward financial clarity by scheduling a no-cost, no-obligation consultation with Gray Hurst Wealth Advisors. See if we're the right fit for you by scheduling a consultation. Call us today at 513-984-5999 or click the link in today's show description to get started.